Good morning everyone. This video today is all about Redwork. Now back in the day, Redwork became quite popular within the embroidery quilting world, and there were lots of books like Red Dolly was one that comes to mind, where all the embroidery was done in nothing but a red embroidery cotton. This particular colour here, DMC, is 498. There are a couple others in the range that are slightly darker, slightly lighter, but that's probably one of the most common ones used. So what I've got here to show you is a slow stitch embroidery book where I keep pieces that I've created just in these colour ranges. This cotton is a Pearl 8 and Anchor. I'm not 100% sure if this is still available because I believe I inherited this roll from somewhere, but it pretty much matched the 498 of the DMC standard stranded cotton, so that's how it sort of ended up in my box that has all the bits and pieces for this particular project. I'll just talk about my box of tricks first. When I was putting this project together, it's been going about 2 years, and it's sort of just somewhere that whenever I feel like doing something in the red only hues and I have some beautiful linens, this is sort of where they go to be put together and collected. So my box of tricks that sits with this consists of some cottons. I then put together some fabrics that are all in those sorts of tones, and I had a fabric that had a little bit of script on it, so that's in there. Just some bits and pieces that sort of match the color wave. And then from when I was making quilts, I had just lots of scraps left over from when I was cutting in edges and working. So even some little yo-yos that I've made out of these bits and pieces. Hexagons, so I've got a little template in there. And then I've got just a selection of any little flowers or embroidery trims that are in these colors, and then buttons. These ones in particular are a pearlized red button. I can open the packet. I've also got some timber colors in here that sort of match those creams. So it's a box of just elements that suit this particular project. And it's all together in a bag. In there is also a pair of scissors and the needles I would need. So for example, if I go somewhere for dinner and we're all sitting around on the couch afterwards watching movies, I can literally grab this, walk out the door, and I know there'll be something in there that I can do. Even if it's only 20 minutes of stitching, at least I've got, you know, everything together ready to go. So I'll show you the actual project itself now. So that's a little bit about what I put together with it. This book came about because I found this particular doily that was not completed by someone at an op shop. So I decided to make it the cover of my book. So it wraps around the back, but I cut it. Did I cut it? Yeah, I actually cut it in half and then inserted this piece of fabric here to create the spine to attach another piece at the back, but it's a different piece, it's not this. So I still have a portion of that. Actually, I just recognized this piece of embroidery. It's actually on another video with the hummingbird. So there you go. That's where this piece is morphed into something else as well. This little lady was in a box of cottons I inherited from a grandmother within the family. And she has crocheted this little dolly. So it was a perfect spot to put her and some sari silk. So the original book, this was the cover. And then I found another doily I really liked, and then that became the new cover. And then this doily was from my grandmother. That became like another cover again, which was attached to the this piece. So it's one of those books that just morphs. it started out as something and just keeps growing and growing and growing. So I'll just do a bit of a flip through. I ended up putting a piece of card in the back here and attaching everything into that card because it sort of gave it a little bit of rigidity when I picked it up. I sort of felt like it was getting quite floppy, and I just wanted something in there just to sort of hold it when I handled the book. So, but it didn't start out like that. It's the great thing about these projects is you just keep adding and adding, and it doesn't really matter how it turns out because it's one of those somewhere to pop your piece of embroidery or your slow stitch piece. Very similar to what we're doing with the Journal of Stitchery with Roxy Creations. So similar sort of process. This one's been going probably 2 years, where I just pick it up and add some more to it. So I'll just do a little flip through. So in here I've got another little panel that I made and then folded it in half to create like a little booklet, and then stitched the little booklet onto the back of this cover. So once again, this was just a little project I did over a weekend, quite random, turned it into a little booklet and then added it to the inside of the cover. Like for example, that piece there, they are like what you'd find in Christmas decorations. That's a little pomegranate floral spray that you would put in a wreath or something. And I had this little piece, so I just popped it in there and made it a bit of a feature. Did some clusters of beads around the place, and in there was a doily that I had, so that sort of became the background. That was a snippet from something I was doing, so a good spot to pop it. These pearls were kicking around, so I just stitched them into there. So that then became a little booklet, like I said, and I just added it to the front cover. So this piece here, this is a perfect example of sitting around watching a movie. My best friend, she's also a crafter like me, so we're always up to something while the boys watch a movie. So this is a piece where I just had a piece of calico. I laid down some lace, and then I made some yo-yos out of all those little scraps, stitched them on, popped some beads in the center of the yo-yo and some little flowers, and then that piece of calico I've attached to a page within the book, so somewhere to store it. That calico looks like it's a handkerchief. It's got a little edge on there, and stitched it down. I haven't looked in this for a little while, so it's going to be a bit of a trip down memory lane. I didn't stitch it down through the center here because I like little spots like that where if I was to make something else, I could tuck it in there. So it's technically a pocket. If I decided to secure this side and pop the piece in, I can at a later date. There's always something I can stitch somewhere in this book. So this next piece is there's the center of a piece of calico that goes the full width of the book, and I've turned up this looks like a placemat, a table placemat. So the placemat was the right size but a fraction deeper down here. I've turned it up to make a pocket, and on this side another pocket. I've then embellished the pockets. Now I would have done that before I turned it up, so I would have worked out my area that I was going to stitch, added all these snippets, turned the pocket up, and then secured it. So it became a backdrop for this page. So just ignore that bit in the middle and you can see the placemat with the turned up pocket either side, which then gives you spots where you can pop bits and pieces that you have made also. Now in the center of that book, I've completed another little slow stitch piece with some embroidery through the center, just pieced some fabrics together, and on this side, another little pocket with a charm with some ephemera that is relating to sewing. I believe these are from a Tim Holtz pack. I have a feeling, not 100% sure, but I think they are. So they sort of fit in there just as a little tuck spot. That's definitely a Tim Holtz charm, altered charm. So this page here then had this one put in the center, and then I've machine stitched straight through to join the two of them together, and then those two have been added to the cover. So this is actually 1, 2, 3 pieces stitched together with a sewing machine, and then I've stitched the signature into the spine of the book. So that's how that has come together. So when we get to the back of this piece, this is not completed. So this is a good example of something that I found at an op shop, a piece of embroidery that's not completed, and I've just pinned it onto the back of this plain page, yet to have anything done. So I've just pinned it in there, and it's ready to go if I ever feel like doing a little bit of stitching. And on the back here, I've got another one that I've started. These are great for when you go on holidays and you just want to take something that you're not doing all the time, but at least you can pick it up, take it with you. Everything's in there that you need, so you're not scrambling around for supplies. So that there at the back, which I'm still embroidering, is a portion of the table runner that's here. Plus, as I mentioned, is featured in the hummingbird piece in my video connected to the Journal of Stitchery, Journal of Stitchery with Roxy Creations. So this little piece must have been left over. I then found a little doily, put some Redwork stitching in the doily to tie it all together, and that's going to be a little pocket. It's not secure yet, but the piece behind is just an old napkin, which I've turned up to create the pocket, then put this doily on the front of it, tucked this piece in the pocket, which will all be stitched down and embroidered when it's ready to go, and then that will go on there. So I've just pinned it for now. That's my thought. Whether that happens, who knows, but that's where I'm sort of thinking along the lines for this page. Okay, now this piece, this was a piece I did many years ago. I was doing stitchery kits for a bit of a side business many moons ago, probably about 20 years ago, and this was one of the patterns that I was using, and this was the sample that I started with. So I don't think it ended up being the original design, but it was just me sketching it down, embroidering it, and sort of seeing if I liked it or not. So this piece was in the cupboard, and I thought what a perfect spot to put it, but into the journal. So it's pinned in here for now because it may or may not stay. I'd say it will. It sort of matches, and I've got a spot for it. So as you can see, even it was just a scrap piece of fabric, there's a bit missing off of there. It was just a trial run of this design. So the next page is the end of the signature. So that fabric is connected to the piece at the front. So the piece of embroidery, I then attach the fabric which wraps around the back to create the back of the first signature. And then I added some lace, crocheted lace, and a bit of a trim. I think that came in a Happy Mail, so it was so pretty. It was a perfect spot for it. Signature number 2, in behind there is the hard card that I put together for this signature to be stitched into. So the start of number 2 is just a collage of bits and pieces. This motif of lace here came from a blouse that I used to wear a lot in the 80s, and I just love the embroidery. So it was a perfect spot to cut it up and pop some pieces into this journal because it matched beautifully. They're paper flowers with some buttons in them. That's a fabric that had a postcard image stamped all over it, so I just cut a piece out, did a little bit of embroidery over the top of it. Let's lift that up so you can see that little bit of embroidery there, some sari silk to create a bow, and then that is the start of the next signature. So that there is a cluster flower where you cut out of felt a flower or a heart or whatever shape you want, and then as you gather up scraps you can just stitch them down, pop a doily in the center, another paper flower, and then a button. So I had a few of them kicking around at the time, so that's there. This is that fabric that had the postcards printed on it. They were quite large, so perfect background for a page. A little bit of lace, that's a bit of a tuck. I haven't secured that, so that could have something in. Then just ignore this for a second. This is the back page, another pocket with just a journal card in there that's been covered. That can slide in. Some ephemera that I believe is Tim Holtz was attached to the pocket. Little bit of fringing, that was like a little bit left over from a project. I just love these fabrics in behind. I think they're Moda Admiral, I think. I'll check, there might be a name on the fabrics that I showed you earlier in the video, so I might be able to give you some more information on those. Now this is the second page that is in the center of the main page. There's actually two. There's this little guy in here, which has got plenty of space, and then the one on the outside. So these pieces, they sort of start off just as a scrap piece of fabric. I then just start adding and adding and adding and slow stitching and creating pockets and just stitch away some little charms, and then they lay in the center of this bigger piece. And then I've started also stitching another one here with some space. I've then machine stitched the whole lot together so they're nice and secure, and I've tucked even a doily in there as well, so it hangs out the bottom. Machine stitched it, so now I've got a signature of fabrics stitched together in a cluster like so, which I've then, using needle and thread like you would in a junk journal, stitch the signature into place when I was ready. So the first one is only 2 pages, this one is actually 3, all varying sizes. So still plenty of room for some treasures to go in when they come along. Then we get to the back of that signature, and this piece is just a random. I had a bit of a doily hanging out from the spine on the side here that sort of had nothing attached. So this little piece came to be a little pocket with a doily, and I've just pinned it into position. I'll take that off so you can see what I mean. Take that off of there. So that's just a little piece that I started stitching. Still needs a little bit of work. Like I said, created a pocket out of this little doily, especially when you find doilies that are just so pretty. It's a modern doily, it's not an old piece, it's been made on a machine, but it's just such a pretty piece of lace. So I've folded, it's a little oblong, I've folded that corner over to sort of create another layer, stitched it down on a piece of napkin, and then on the back did a little bit of work as well. Oh, there's a pocket there as well underneath those ladies. So that was some fabric that had an image on it that sort of suits. Then as you can see, I've got this little bit of fabric sticking through from a page further back that I'm going to attach that to. It'll be like hinged off of that. So on the very back here, I just placed a couple pieces of fabric, stitched them down with a tacking stitch, and then just sketched a bit of a leaf in there that held a little timber bird cage. So I'll just lift that up. So that technically would have been the back page of this book, but because I keep adding and adding, this is sort of too delicate to be the back page of a book. So that's how this came to be the new cover. And that then wrapped around the whole piece with the doily on the front. So there's nothing stopping me in the future that this might end up being in the book and another cover comes on. That's the beautiful thing about these embroidery books, is you just keep adding, and as you do little projects, you just look for a spot to pop it. Sometimes doing a big book can be very daunting, but if you break it down into lots of little projects, sorry, just clearing my throat here, it's sort of not so daunting in the end, and you just have little tucks and bits and pieces. Gee, I'm looking at this piece here, and that crocheted flower is actually pink, which sort of goes against everything I just said, but it's there. Does it matter? Probably not. If it does, you can always remove it and it'll be gone. So that's all pinned back into position. So this is my Redwork book. As you can see, it's just a collage of bits and pieces that I've made over those 2 years. I keep it all together so that I can literally grab the box, head out the door, and have something I can work in. And it doesn't have to be a lot. One night I might just stitch that, pop a few beads in it, and that's enough. When I'm happy that the piece is finished, it'll be stitched into position because I think this is where it's going to go. It may not. It might come out and go into something completely different, but I know that everything in this box is everything to do with the reds, the beiges, and it has a home, so to speak. So that's my Redwork book. I'll just have a quick look at the fabric here to see if I can work out what this was, because it was a charm pack that I purchased at a shop. Oh yeah, it is a Moda Fabrics, 100% cotton. And is there a name? Can't see anything. That's the one that's on the inside cover of the book. No, there's not. I really feel like it's French Admiral, but I'm not 100% sure. That looks like it's a different fabric that's been added. Oh, here we go. Pavilion, La Beurre Pavilion. Oh, French General. There we go. French General. I knew it was something to do with the army. There we go. I'll just bring that up so you can see. So that's the pack of fabric. I believe this is still available because I only purchased this pack within the last 2 years to 18 months. So you probably will still find it around. And I'm pretty sure I've seen other colour waves of this fabric. So you shouldn't find it too hard to find something from the Moda range. Beautiful fabrics. I use a lot of their fabrics to put together your very own book that you stay within a sort of colour range. Now, another little item that has yet to find a home in here, and I was actually thinking of popping him on the very front of my book, is this little guy. He is just a random stitching that I did one day sitting in front of a TV watching a movie. He's a little a moth, a fancy little moth. He's had pearls for his head, a little bow on his back, and these little pieces here have all been couched into position. Now, that idea came from when I was doing the 52 tags with Anne Brooks. One of the tags was couching textures in a row on a tag, and when I trimmed the tag to make it fit, I had all these bits left over that I'd rolled up to be part of the stitching. So those little bits were just too precious to throw away. So I just started stitching them down, and it sort of reminded me of the body of a bee. So I find this camera. There we go. So I just used the snippets left from that tag to create this little bumblebee. I might actually stop the video here and I'll just go and grab the tag that this came from. So any of you out there that have completed that project, it was 2021, where we all made one tag per week, and the prompt was provided by Anne Brooks, a textile artist in the UK. So I might just stop the video there and I'll grab the tag that came from, and you can see how I sort of came to create this piece Won't be a moment. Hello everyone, I'm back. I just grabbed the tag that I was talking about with the bumblebee that I created with the Anne Brooks 52 tag challenge. So they were rolled pieces of fabric, which I've used from this pack, and then stitched onto a tag to create a textured couched feature. So I've literally gone to this box of tricks and just grabbed some bits and pieces out, whoops, and even popped a little bit of tatting on the bottom of the tag. And yeah, it was week 17 couching. So that's the little tag. Now when I trimmed it for the tag, like I said, there were these little bits left which became scraps that I used on the bumblebee. So that's how that came to be. And when I was looking through the box, I noticed that there were some other tags that were all fabrics that I'd pilfered out of this pack. So this was another one that I made using those sorts of colour tones. And this was seed stitch, so week 16. Okay, so I did that, and then I did that. Let's have a look at this one. Weaving. So this was week 37, so a little bit later in the challenge. And once again, I've gone to this box of tricks and pilfered out some scraps. And this one was all about weaving the fabrics over each other, and then doing a little bit of embroidery on top to sort of bring it all together. Okay, so that is my Redwork book. These tags would just be beautiful in here as a home. But what I'm thinking for the tags, because I've got a box of them all completed, is making a book for them so that they're all together. At the moment, they're in a box and you sort of can't flip through them very easily. So that's a project coming this year, where I'll make a book similar to this and attach them all in somehow. I haven't really nutted that out in my mind yet, but that is coming. Okay, everyone, thank you very much for taking a look at my Redwork book. I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.